Okay, so to move on with that, we need to discuss also what are the characteristics of life. So remember we said as we went through the list of the structures, we had the cell, and the cell is the basic unit of life. So it has to start with that. So living things have to have cells. We would call them sentient. Okay, sentient means they have senses, which we'll get into also. But there's a few different ways. If you look this up, you're going to see between 5 and 10 different attributes on here, but the number one that seems to be agreed on by all of them is absolutely that there has to be cells. So we know that trees have cells, that there's one-celled organisms, of course. Trees have cells, animals have cells, bugs have cells, fish have cells, those kinds of things. So that's a basic one on that. The second part, or another one, would be that those cells can repair and build new cells. So there's reproduction in that. Reproduction of not only the cells, which is repair and growth, but also to make and reproduce itself into a new thing. So somehow, whether it's like through separating and mitosis and meiosis and things like that, or through pollination or what have you. So reproduction has to be one of the essential ones. Transport through inside the system. There has to be also some kind of regulatory system, which is response and adaptation. So it has to be able to respond to its environment in some ways. If it can respond, then it can react and it can grow and shrink and do that kind of stuff. It also has to bring in some kind of food material or some kind of nutrients and be able to circulate that within the system, absorb it in the system, and also excrete it from the system. So we can see with this kind of stuff, if we really look at it, it seems that fire would actually follow all of these. The only thing it doesn't follow is that it doesn't have cells. So that's the only difference we have there, and that's a very important distinction, because fires definitely consume, they definitely respond, they definitely grow and reproduce, and they definitely excrete, which would be like the ash, for example, but they don't have cells, so they're considered not alive. Now, viruses are another question. Are viruses alive? Well, no, they're not considered alive in basic biology because they're not a cell. They're actually a segment of either RNA or DNA that edits itself and copies and edits itself into the hosts. So it has to have a host, but it also does have reaction, but it's not considered really alive. So that's where we can go with that. So transport or circulation, which is either absorption or being able to move stuff within it. It doesn't mean it has to be able to move on the earth or through the sky or anything like that, because some things are very stable and still. But it has to be able to transport inside it and get things in and get things out and get things through, that kind of thing. Reproduction and growth are also a very important concept of that. Respiration, usually they'll take in some kind of, respiration is one that we can argue with, because we're starting to find that some things don't use oxygen, or they don't use carbon dioxide in the same way, or they use it opposite us, like plants do. Plants bring in CO2 and bring off oxygen. We do the opposite. So really that's more of the transport one. We can kind of put it under there, but remember the main thing is cells. Okay guys, so this is that's the end of this one. Look for the question down below for the attendance for the class. You don't have to answer it if you're just watching this for no reason or whatever, but if you're in the class, I'm going to be looking in the next day or two from the time this is assigned, and then you go ahead and answer the question. That's how we'll do part of the attendance. So this is Dr. Sean over at home, actually doing online classes for Bio 1310 and 1320. This is part 3 of Chapter 1. Talk to you guys later. Take care.